Your tender mercies, they keep on falling in spite of myself.
We got married and we lived on the south side of town and went to a church there for about a year. Then we moved to the northeast side of town and immediately started going to Sunshine. I started, volunteering in the nursery and just, teaching Sunday school when the kids were that age and just those types of things. The first time the bulletin announcement came that they needed people to do teen MOPS, God kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, Vonnie, I'd really like you to do this. And I said, I don't think so. Right now I'm kind of busy. And it kind of went away. And then the next year there was a notice again, and he said, Vonnie, I'd really like you to do this. And I said, I just can't right now. I'm kind of busy. And then the third year that it was like, okay, now I'm not waiting around anymore. And I was like, okay. We get just some pretty nitty-gritty talking, and a couple of the girls have just said, I'm not as good as you guys. There's not going to be room for me. And so we've had some very frank talks about personally us, where we've been, and what makes you think that you're any worse than us. Brad and I had an attraction to each other, obviously. We cared about each other very deeply, and I don't know that we had actually used the words loved, but when we found out that I was pregnant, I guess, he said, let's get married. And I think I was the one that said, whoa, but then we finally decided, I finally said, yeah, no, this is the right move. Prayed about it for a while and just like, okay, this is right. And you just go in there and you just love on them. But the thing is, you also have to be honest with them about that. Your life is not perfect, and you make mistakes. And we've cried with these girls and said, you know what, I screwed up at this time or that time, and I screwed up this morning, and I was mean to my husband or my kids or whatever, and I made some bad choices this week or last month, and we never ever tell these kids that we're better, never, because we're not. And what's really cool is when they finally do get it, and then they start to really trust you and know that you're not going to walk away tomorrow, and that you still call them and say, how are you? How'd your day go? And then they start calling you when they're having trouble, or they call you when something really good happens because they're excited and they want to share it with you. And that's what's really cool.
Your tender mercy.
Most of them have no idea what unconditional love is. And so trying to just talk to them about it is like, they're like, God the Father loves you unconditionally. Well, half of them don't even know who their father is, or haven't seen him in many years. And there's so much hurt there from a father that they can't understand that Jesus is a father figure to them and loves them unconditionally. They can go home and say, I've decided to quit smoking, and the parent says, well, let's see how long that lasts. Okay, and there's not encouragement there, and they just don't have anybody that does that kind of stuff for them. She calls me her Dutch mama, I can get in there and say, okay, what is it these girls really need to hear? And I may think that one thing's going on in my head, and the Holy Spirit has something totally different. And some days it's like, wow, where did that come from? And I know. And that especially happens at the retreats that we have, because we talk about the Holy Spirit a lot there. And, we just pray that God just puts the words in our mouths. And I'm not one who's really quick on where scripture's found. And there's been times where I've sat there and go, wow, I didn't know I knew that. And I didn't, and I still don't, if you ask me now. But it's the Holy Spirit just puts that in you and just fills you, and you can just love on these kids. And some days, and anybody on the steering team will tell you that some Wednesday mornings when we have MOPS, everything breaks loose at their house. And we know those are going to be good days, because Satan is just trying to really beat us down. And okay, you know, you're tired, you get there, and you just cannot love on one more person. And so before we start, we always pray, just help us to love these girls like you want them to be loved. And that energy just comes in, and your arms open to them, and so I've really learned to trust the Holy Spirit. People just don't even realize, you know, people look down on them because they're teenagers and they have a baby, and yet they chose life.